And now, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Interlude Media, spelled out right, NTRLD_media. I'm your host, Nick DeSantis. You might know me as Nicky Nicknames. And today, I'm joined by my man, holding it down on the ones and twos, my co-host, Todd Roshong. But you might know him as T-Row Price because he understands that return on investment. And this right here is Interlude Spins, an album review podcast where two friends chop it up regarding the greatest records you didn't know you needed to know, with the goal of teaching you something new and us more about our favorite artists and albums. But folks, I would be remiss if I don't mention that each one of these episodes is mixed, mastered, edited, and produced by One Time Productions. So welcome to Interlude Spins, episode 4, review 3. T, take it away.
Welcome into episode 4. Always good to be back on the mic with you, Nicky Nicknames. And I will say, part of the intro here is we're telling people about the greatest records they didn't know they needed to know. The thing is, if you don't know this record, I think you just haven't been on the internet, because this record is all over the place. Very excited to finally get ourselves into some modern day Kendrick Lamar GNX 2025 Rap Album of the Year.
Yes, sir. I think, hey, you nailed it right off rip. We wanted to address kind of the Grammys on one of our first episodes. We were struggling, ran out of time, but now we get to do it. This album came out in 2024, actually, which is interesting, later in the year 2024, and it won the Grammy in 2026. Now, the Grammy calendar doesn't necessarily match the calendar year.
Right.
So that's why that happened, but it's kind of funny because it was a long time ago when that album was released compared to when it actually started winning the awards per se. But I think the awards were won before that. I think we can confidently say that.
Yeah, there's a lot of confidence on this record that we're absolutely going to get into coming from Kendrick. But yeah, I think it was evident from the time that this came out and just how kind of effervescent it's been for the past, coming up on a year and a half now, like you said. This was a no-brainer, I think. So obviously excited that we're getting into it.
Yes, sir. Well, I guess in theory suggested we do this one. I would be shocked if you didn't know who Kendrick Lamar was, and any listener, I would be shocked if you don't know who Kendrick Lamar is. Pretty household name at this point. But I'm curious on this question right here to you to start us off is, I definitely know you listened to Kendrick through high school and this and that, but this is, this was all over TikTok, this album, but it is relatively newer. And so I don't know, how much did you actually know of this project before really listening?
So you already bring up an interesting point, because for all of our dedicated fans, our L&Ls, the people who remember a time so long ago, but not really all that long ago, about a month and a half ago, back when we were in season 1, there was a segment that we like to come back to on the episode. That was our WD-40 segment.
Hey.
Nick, I think we got to break out the grease real quick.
Bring it back.
I'm not gonna get too into the weeds here, but I got to break out the WD-40 on just social media as a whole. We all know that this is just not great for our mental health, how much people are chronically online and all that shit.
Just coming after social media as a whole.
But when it comes to social media and the way that TikTok and Instagram Reels and whatever are using music now, to your point, this song blew up on this album rather blew up on TikTok. There are so many of these tracks that you can recognize in these just little snippets here and there. But you don't get a chance to listen to the full project unless you seek out that effort and put in the time to listen from top to bottom. And so for me, having not been someone who listened to this project from start to finish when it came out, I got so kind of indoctrinated with all of the little social media clips. And then when I finally do go and listen through it track by track, all I'm thinking about is, oh, this reminds me of that TikTok or this Instagram reel that I saw. And it kind of ruins the listening experience in a way. So I had to get that off my chest, that I will say. The fact that I was coming into this with all of that in my head instead of just listening to it kind of raw, clean, no opinions here or there, from the jump, it definitely made for a very different listening experience, especially compared to what we did in our first two episodes, where those tracks were from 2013, 2015. I haven't heard them in, a decade plus. And so
right.
obviously not each individual track necessarily, but when you're listening to something that's a decade old, it's not fresh in the memory, and it almost gives for a clean slate listening experience versus for this album in particular, GNX. My brain was just was flooded with a bunch of nonsense that kind of detracted from my listening experience. And I listened through this album probably 3 times from when we kind of announced that this was going to be our next episode. Because I had to try to wash all that shit out and just actually get to digest the music.
It's an interesting point you bring up, because I think, well, I'm not crazy on the socials, so and obviously I'm way bigger into rap / knowing Kendrick, so my first listen was the album itself, not necessarily the TikToks. But I find that an interesting situation, and I can relate to it in a sense of utilizing samples, because I feel like a lot of rap you will see will utilize samples, including this project, which we can get into. And when you don't know the original songs as well, when you hear the original, your first response is like, well, I remember when the newer artists made it, and that's how I listened to them, that song, and it's almost befuddled. I don't really love it when it's interpolated music, in a sense, you know what I'm saying? Like a sample, usually it's pulling a bit of the song, and then it adds a layer or whatever that may be. But I think it's interesting when a lot of artists will rap on another person's beat, which happens in this album as well. But I think you see that a lot more in rap in the mixtape culture, which is guys who are trying to come up in the game, who are trying to kind of level their status up. They might not be as famous. They will release a project for free, usually called a mixtape, and rap over beats that might be relevant to that day, like some that are more being played heavily right now. So I always found that interesting. I never really loved it when artists did that. I liked kind of when they made their own original stuff. And yeah, I feel like that is like that whole TikTok thing where you have that's what your thought and what you know of that song is.
Yeah,
so that's funny.
For sure.
That's interesting.
I agree. It's a point that is true across genres too. Yes, it happens a good bit in hip hop and when it comes to mixtapes, but it's stuff that I feel like we're seeing more and more. And we've talked about this on the show before, of me being a pretty big country music fan, right? You got Luke Combs that just came out with Fast Car, his own version of Fast Car, rather. You've got there's a song that references what is it? It references an old Jody Messina song from the 90s, but it's just like a new kind of modern poppy spin on it, and borrowing the same lyrics of Heads Carolina, Tails California is the original song. And so when you hear it now in modern day, I heard the modern version of it, and then I go back and listen to the 90s version, and it gives you that same experience. And now it's kind of hard to listen to that song for what it is without having that additional context.
Right. Yeah, you're almost it's almost Back to the Future-esque, bro.
A little bit.
I know what's coming. You know what I'm saying? I like it though. That's funny. All right. Well, let's get this one kicked off, folks. I think if we talk about GNX, it has to start from Mr. Morale, which is Kendrick's album before GNX. But even to give context into that, I think we need to state a few ground rules about Kendrick if you don't know. So I'm going to go quickly because I'm assuming most people do. Kendrick's from LA, specifically Compton, California. Made 3 albums that, me personally, I call the Holy Trinity, which is Good Kid, Mad City, To Pimp a Butterfly, and then Damn. Almost cementing himself and Damn came out in 2027, almost cementing himself by 2027. Or 2017, sorry, not 2027. Yeah, we're not even there yet.
I knew what you meant.
Yeah,
no. I knew what you meant, dog.
Kendrick's just out here in the future, just making projects, brother. Maybe, hey, hopefully he drops an album in 2027, and you heard it here first on the Interlude Pod. That would be great. But
wouldn't that
going
be
back
marvelous?
to the topic, that would be beautiful, wouldn't it? Going back to the topic, 2017 Damn releases, and it's the 3rd of his albums. And he had more than that necessarily, but those are the 3 big ones. And I think kind of did everything you almost can do as a rapper to that point, and took a lot of time off. Mr. Morale comes out in 2022, so a 5-year hiatus, and there really wasn't much going on. He did the soundtrack to the Black Panther movie, which I think was also in 2017, could have been 2018, but around the same time as Damn, so it was probably around those same studio sessions, right? That was being made. So we didn't really get too much new music between 2017 to 2022, and really not even many features came out. So he was kind of just, we don't know what was going on. I almost like to look at it as like the Jordan baseball period. He took the time off type vibe. So then Mr. Morale comes, and the album is called Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. It's a double album, a lot of music. There was obviously a lot of hype around it. We should say that his first 3 projects had a lot of commercial acclaim to them, and Mr. Morale drops and doesn't have as much commercial acclaim. I think it's one of the best albums that came out that year. I think if you listen to it, it's pretty remarkable. It's very, very deep. And I don't think it maybe connected with the masses as much, but it was a project that Kendrick wanted to make and felt that he needed to make. But again, it just, a lot of people would say it wasn't on the Kendrick Lamar tier. It ends up winning, I think, the Grammy for Best Rap Album of the Year. So still took care of business in terms of that. And I think most people would agree that it's a good quality project, but it's just slightly different. It's just very much deeper. He went experimental on a few ideas here and there. But the point being is, when you're not hitting the top of the charts, people are wondering, are you washed? And I don't know if Kendrick's really worried about that, but I know I think the people might have been. And then we have to go into the beef. I think that's the next part here. And ladies and gentlemen, I showed y'all in the review video, but you see
it right there.
This is their most ridiculous final of all time, and I love it. When I saw this thing, I was going crazy. But what happens is, obviously, Kendrick hops on a song with Metro Boomin and Future called Like That, and pretty much makes a diss at Drake. Drake and J. Cole made a song called First Person Shooter, where they reference the big 3 in rap, which is Drake, J. Cole, and Kendrick. So they literally give Kendrick flowers in the song, and Kendrick goes, hang on, they not like us, and pretty much says, no, I'm the GOAT. Why are you coming after me type vibe? Which ensued in probably the best rap battle. I don't know if I can say best rap battle in history, but at least since I've been alive, history. This was just amazing. And we got a lot of good songs. I think it woke Drake up. But I think the big thing about this, too, was that it woke Kendrick up and made Kendrick go,
time.
all right, here's where I'm at. I'm about to end the career of one of the biggest rappers in the world, the biggest commercial acclaim rappers in the world, probably is, and beats him in this battle. And not necessarily beats him because he has a better lyricist or whatever that may be, beats him commercially as well. Obviously, the song Not Like Us goes crazy. And I think that sets the tone coming into GNX, where this was a surprise release album. Kendrick has won, at this point in time when it comes out in 2024, has won the bid to perform at the Super Bowl. And that is kind of where this comes out. GNX on drop, it's a little bit shorter than most Kendrick projects. And I think the one line on the first song really sets the tone. Fuck a double entendre. I want y'all to feel this shit. And that's what's up. Because most of Kendrick music is very layered. You have to sit with it for a while. You're like, man, what is going on here? This is deep.
Yeah.
And this project, there's some of those deep classic Kendrick layers in it. But this one was for LA and for the streets almost. And the commercial acclaim. If it's on TikTok, he did all right. So it obviously pulled through there, and then won for Best Rap Album of the Year. And then the song Luther wins Record of the Year across all genres at the Grammys. So shout out Kenny on that one. But that is the setting tone for where we are with GNX. And yeah, we chose it because of that. Oh yeah, I didn't even show the vinyl cover yet. Come on now, ladies and gentlemen.
There it is.
Hold it up. Yeah, you see it. GNX is the Grand National. It's that car. It gets referenced a lot throughout the whole album. It's definitely a motif. But I think a good setting point to that is the Grand National came out in 1987, the year Kendrick was born. So it's kind of a throwback there. This project has a lot of throwback and older references in it in terms of the beats and structure, but you also see the future come through. And so I think that theme tied really well, but it's braggadocio at its finest, and then it's introspection at its finest. And I think that's where we're at. And I would love, now that the table is set, Todd, to hear your thoughts first and foremost, just on the album as a whole, and then I think maybe we go in song by song because it's a pretty short project.
Yeah, no, much appreciated. That was you covered anything and everything in terms of setting the table there, and you do bring up a few interesting points. One thing that I just thought was kind of funny and a little ironic, I guess, is a better word than funny, is that the whole beef that comes out with Drake is kind of on Drake. We talked about this even when we reviewed Drake, that he doesn't really have a lane. He kind of does a little bit of everything. He's kind of chasing pop, kind of chasing rap, kind of chasing R&B. He's doing a little bit of it all, and he's, rightfully so, because he is a very talented individual. A lot of his songs blow up. He makes a lot of money. He sells a lot of records. This album wasn't trying to do that. It just did that because it's such a good project. And I think, like we talked about, this is not Kendrick doing anything other than just like stating what he believes to be the facts, and what I think a lot of the world at this point kind of believes to be the facts, that he's the greatest and there doesn't need to be a conversation about it anymore. Like, he can just put his foot down and say it with confidence, say it with his chest. Like you said, there's some introspection on this project, but I feel like we've talked about this when we went over Nothing Was the Same, and when we went over Before the Money, of like, these artists are kind of at these peaks. They're doing great things for themselves, for their careers, maybe things that they didn't envision for themselves given their upbringing. And there's introspection going on there of, maybe I don't believe if I deserve it, or whatever it may be.
Right.
On this project, Kendrick's like, no, this is me. I did this. I earned this. I deserve this label. I am the greatest. I'm confident. I'm gonna, establish my territory. Like, I think, we talked about, you mentioned that he's from Compton. He's from LA. Obviously, huge hip hop scene that comes out of that city. And my view of the whole project is that LA hip hop is now defined by how Kendrick does it.
I think yes and no. I think he is probably the king of the city, and I think everyone agrees with that. But I think there's different sounds that come out of, the areas that he wouldn't even be related to. And I think you see that on this project, because I think a lot of fans diss Kendrick in the sense that he didn't really bring up LA. Like, he always has talked about the hometown and everything like that, but he's never really necessarily brought artists from that area onto his projects and showcased them for who they are. And in this album, he does do that, like, throughout the whole thing. Like, most of the features, you don't know who these guys are because they're smaller underground dudes in LA. And I do love that part of it. To their vibe and their sound, like, they're nothing like Kendrick is, right? So, like, I don't know if it's that whole sound. I think it's just the staple of what it is. Like, if you want to own LA, it's got to come through Kendrick, and that's gonna be tough. Because the other thing too is, you got to think, in LA right now, like, we have Tyler the Creator, who has given flowers to Kendrick, saying, what was the quote in his song? He was like, "I'm the biggest in the city behind Kenny," and that's a fact now. So you got to respect that. So he's saying, that, I'm big, but I'm not touching Kendrick type vibe, and that's probably true right now. And so, and Tyler's sound is definitely different, the way he goes about making his music. If I had to guess, folks, that a Tyler project might come through in one of the next episodes. If I had to guess, you never know. But point being, I think there's that, and yeah, that's an interesting theme throughout this project of trying to bring up the next generation as well.
Yeah. No, I really love, especially as you get into the second half of the album, the features that are on a lot of the tracks. Like you said, for a non-devout hip-hop fan like me, just someone who definitely enjoys the music but is not plugged into the scene, I look at these tracks and I don't recognize these features one bit. I have no idea
Well,
who
I'll
these
say I
people
didn't
are.
recognize a lot of them, and obviously,
Wow.
like, I know
So then,
rap, so right.
so then that really is a shout out to how deep Kendrick went in sourcing these people. And you are right, you know, they do have a different sound than him, but obviously when you put a full track together and when they fit into the greater project that is this album, I think it all sounds really good. It's all very complimentary. And so, yeah, no, other than that, I think that kind of sums up the main takeaways there.
Yeah. It's just an awesome album. I
It
don't
really
know.
is.
I think, like, when it dropped, it was so crazy. I remember it because it was like we didn't know that this was coming, and then it came out, and it was like, oh wow! Like, we didn't know if it was going to touch on the beef, if it wasn't, and it doesn't. He kind of, well, I guess he alludes to it and things like that, but he doesn't make a diss track on this album, which is an interesting thing, and that came out later. When the album was out for a while, people were wondering why They Not Like Us, which is probably the big diss track song that came out from Kendrick, why that wasn't put on this album, because he probably would have increased sales dramatically by having that as a deluxe or whatever that may be, as a bonus track, right? And he pretty much said that wasn't the vibe of what this was. Like, the beef was the beef, and we were trying to do something separate, which is cool. And he was able to do that. But okay, with that being said, overall vibe of the project from you, this one is definitely a little bit lighter, more energizing, I would say. But I'm curious to hear what you thought from it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It definitely is lighter. There's not also something you mentioned earlier. It's pretty straightforward. It doesn't ask necessarily a ton of you in terms of trying to understand some sort of emotional arc. I know that's what I've talked about when we went through Drake and when we went through Joey Badass's, trying to understand what was going on internally and putting a cohesive story together. This album doesn't ask you to do that as much. It's kind of song after song after song. You can jive with it. You can get along with it. You can see it fitting in a bunch of different settings. Obviously, there are some songs on here that are a little bit slower, and there are other songs that are just, 100 miles an hour. Even with that being the case, I think they're sequenced in a way that it works well, so that you can listen to this from top to bottom. Or obviously, like we said, songs that have gotten plucked for little, like, 30-second snippets that end up on TikTok or whatever it might be. Like, there's just constantly, this is something that we'll get to at the end of the episode when it comes to our scoring, but it's a very, very easy project to come back to and listen to like I said, in all different settings. It doesn't ask a lot of you, the listener, other than to just enjoy it.
A lot of Kendrick's projects, and especially his latest ones up to GNX, was almost like a TV show where if you watched episode 5, meaning you listened to song 5 first, you would be lost. Like, the concept albums were so deep that you had to listen in order. This one, you don't necessarily have to do that, but listening in order, you will then understand the theme. So I believe that there is a concept through this, and it's woven, and it's beautifully done, in my opinion. But it is one of those projects that it's easier just to go back to certain songs. And I think that was the point in terms of proving that I can do this commercially, is why you see that. And I think that's the line with Fuck a Double Entendre, right? Because this is the music. It's still quality music. This is still an album. Hey, Drake, you couldn't even do this, right? Because, like, right now, Drake is trying to make those. He's always been trying to make those commercial songs. I don't think he has that one album, like we talked about, that's deep throughout. So he's been kind of trying to do a theme, but make songs that you just go back to. And he's probably done that the best out of any rap artist ever. But recently, he hasn't. And I think we're starting to see that that's washing, because when you can't make an authentic project, that's what happens. And so this was, in the funniest way, this was a double entendre, because he did it while also, you know what I mean, making just straight bangers and saying what's up. So
right, absolutely,
I love it.
Like this,
I love it.
This project is 12 songs, and just like reading through the track list, even someone who's not a like proper hip hop fan is gonna know half of them. You're gonna know at least 6 of them,
right?
Or at least have heard half of them in some way, shape, or form. Which for a lot of albums, that's not the case. There might be 1, 2, maybe 3 if you're lucky, depending on who the artist is. Of like, yeah, that song really blew up, and I know that song, but otherwise the rest of the album is a mystery to me. To have 50% of it as like renowned songs is, yeah, it's just a testament to the skill, the ability, and just I keep coming back to the word confident. I feel like this entire album was just confident. And, you know, maybe you're riding high a little bit after winning against Drake, after winning that battle and winning the beef. You're riding a high a little bit, I guess, kind of at this point, knowing that the Super Bowl performance is coming, and like you have that kind of recognition coming your way, but also, you know, that's one of the biggest national stages you can get, doing the Super Bowl halftime performance. And so having that on his upcoming slate at the time of releasing this, you got to be feeling good about yourself, you know, not, you know, putting aside the fact that he had the Holy Trinity as you described it. And even with the project that came out before this one, even if it didn't have the commercial fame, Kendrick knows who he is. He knows that he's just one of the best that's ever done it. And with that, this whole project, I assume when he stepped in the studio, he was just having a blast.
I think that's the point, though. He knows who he is. I think that's the best way to put it. So when it's time to be braggadocious, he can do it because he knows why. And when it's time to be like, what's going on, and I need to think about myself, he's able to admit that, which is where, you know, in the beef, Drake lacks. And so it's interesting to see that. But we're here. I think we go through, I would love to hear your thoughts track by track. We can maybe go a little bit quicker through it and just kind of go, you know, highlights on each of the songs and things like that, and go from there. But I'm excited to hear what you thought the songs are about and the themes and all that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I guess kicking.
I also got to stop you before you start. Right now, okay. I don't know if the people who can see, Todd's got like golden hour on. Okay, the sun's just splashing him. He's talking about Kendrick. Hey, God woke up. He's shining a light on you or something, man. So I just
was gonna say you having a little bit of a magical experience for you. Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, no, I mean the sun is shining. I'm you know, for again our lovely listeners who know, I'm normally coming to you from Connecticut. Today I'm coming to you from New Jersey, kind of down the Jersey Shore a little bit. We got the sun peeking. Still a lot of snow out here, so that's also, you know, causing a lot of brightness coming through the window, I suppose. But that's all good. That's all good. You just got to focus on the golden hour.
I'm telling you, this is how I felt when I heard GNX the first time. Is how Todd looks right now. So for all the visual, I
was gonna say, we mentioned it's a pretty short album. You know, it's 12 songs. I could try to pull up the length in terms of time quickly, but it kind of is a golden hour. It doesn't take much more than that to listen to this whole project, right? Let's see. It's 44 minutes. So you can just sit back, enjoy, have a great time for less than an hour. And so kicking things off with this project, Whacked Out Murals. I think this is maybe a little bit common, and I have a feeling this is going to be something that we touch on more often the more albums that we go through, where the intro and the outro to an album are not always the songs that blow up. And that was one of the unique things that we talked about with Nothing Was the Same, is that the intro and the outro are songs that you know,
Right.
And I think that's, so doubling back to what I was saying though, of maybe these aren't the songs that you know the best. I don't think Whacked Out Murals is one of them. But I just think Kendrick comes into this setting the stage for what this whole project is going to be, of, like we said, I know who I am and others won't define my legacy. Only I get to do that.
And I think he touches on the beef a lot in this song too. The whole concept is people, I don't know who, but he has a mural in LA and someone did deface it during the beef. And so that's what Whacked Out Murals is referring to, which is an interesting concept. And that's kind of what the whole song is. So it sets the stage. I've mentioned the line from the song before, but he does name drop a few other artists who, who maybe weren't on his side during this whole thing or feeling them, and kind of saying what's good. So, yeah, that it really just sets the tone of saying, like, the beef, it is done, but I need to address it. So here's me addressing it. Welcome to GNX.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add. I think
one thing I'd love to add on this is the song, the moment it starts, you'll think that your speakers were turned down, which I find very interesting. And I've never talked to someone about this, so I'm curious if you had this too. Every time I play it, whether it's on vinyl or even just in my headphones, I always turn it up a bit more right when Whacked Out Mural starts, because it's very slow and it's very low. And then as the song gets going, that's when they kind of raise the volume of it. And I find that very interesting because he starts getting a lot more passionate as it goes. And so I think that's a cool twist sonically.
Yeah. I think that's something that I implicitly was also feeling, but did not explicitly have at the forefront of my attention. So that's a very interesting call out. Yeah, it definitely does. I guess rather the way that I would say it manifested for me is we announced that this was going to be the project of the week, or for the episode rather. So I go and hit play on it and it starts and I'm like, okay, I got to turn this up so I can hear it. And then as the project goes on, I'm like, I got to turn it down. Like, now this is too loud in my ears or too loud in my car, wherever I was listening to it. So it definitely, it's definitely an interesting kind of production note for you to call out there. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And I think when it builds, it goes right into probably the one of the loudest tracks on the album, which is Squabble Up. And so I think that's an interesting way on how you do that, because Squabble Up comes in hot. It's like, yeah. So
it comes in really
cool
fast,
like
and it's
right.
It comes in really fast, and it's Squabble Up is, that this is something you try to not synthesize. Maybe that's the right phrase, but just try to summarize the track in 2 songs. In 2 words rather, was just controlled chaos. Like, it's coming at you, but it's also very deliberate. There's a lot of, like we said, aggression, but it's not, if you listen close, I don't know. I don't have a ton of great words in my head prepared for talking about this album. I just think this is going to be more kind of raw than what we've even done in the past. But yeah, no,
but that's fine. I think what you just said is that what this song is. It's just raw. It's just like, I did squabble up. I'm ready to squabble up if you need. Yeah. I can do that. This is for
He's
LA. Here we are. I'm not backing down. And I will, and I have. So, what's up? Kind of more of that. And then obviously it's just a hilarious song. The refrain, I can't even do it, but it's funny. It's like, I think this was, I'm here. I'm going to make that commercial hit. What's good? And then, ironically, goes into probably the slowest song on the album, but the biggest commercial hit of can we say all time? No, but could be for Kendrick all time.
Tough. Potentially. I mean, obviously, like we said,
I can't sing.
Obviously, like we said, it won Record of the Year at the Grammys. Obviously featuring SZA. Their partnership on obviously not just on this album, because SZA is on Luther, and she's also on Gloria at the end of the album. But just anything that Kendrick and SZA have done together, for whatever reason, their two sounds seem to marry very well. I don't think they've had, a song together that isn't an enjoyable listen. So just a little bit of a shout out there to SZA. I think she deserves a little bit of flowers for being a huge part of the song that won Record of the Year. And yeah, the way that I described this song in my little bit of jotting notes down is that it's the warmest song on the whole album. When like a lot of these songs are kind of cold, they're kind of blunt. This song is very warm. It's very inviting. Obviously, it has allusions to Black lineage, Black legacy. It shows a lot of Kendrick's like emotional intelligence that he's developed over his life, over his career. And so I think all of that just kind of comes together in one, obviously very sonically pleasing, lyrically pleasing, and now critically acclaimed song.
I don't care who you are. If you don't like this song, you don't like music. I will make that statement and stand on it. Some interesting parts of this. I think I agree with you saying that it's warmth, but there is fight here. And it's a love song. And I think the one word that you used to describe it is protection, right? So a lot of it throughout, he's saying like, I'll hit you with that fire. He's kind of saying how like, no one's going to cross you. I'm going to protect you. Mm-hmm. And I find that interesting because obviously I think he's talking about his wife through that, because in the beef, a lot of people came after just him and his family and everything like that. But I think there's also, alludes to his creativity and his artistry as being things that like I'm going to protect, and this is who I love. SZA obviously just blows us out of the water, kills it. To touch on SZA, Kendrick came up, and we'll get into this a lot later because one of the songs is all about this, but from a label called TDE, Top Dog Entertainment. SZA is the biggest R&B artist on Top Dog Entertainment. Kendrick is no longer part of TDE, but they were label mates for a while, so they've been around together. But an interesting part is they only have 3 songs together, and two of them are over 1 billion streamed, and one of them is close to 3 billion streams, which is All of the Stars for the Black Panther album, which, again, if you haven't listened to that one, oh my goodness, that song is crazy. It pretty much is a prelude to the whole beef. If you listen to the lyrics on it, it's wild. I remember hearing that and I was like, wow, this is, I can't believe that this was made before. And it'll be hard for me to explain. You got to go back and listen after this is done, but you'll be like, wow, that's crazy that he made this song with SZA. And that's the biggest part that I want to touch on with this is using SZA specifically. Drake has rumored that him and SZA dated in the past. SZA was all over Drake's latest album before GNX, which is the one that the beef started about. And so it's like, damn, you made a hit with SZA, but I'm gonna blow your hit with SZA out the water. So this is still subtle. It's still like that, and it's almost like SZA has to pick a side, which is crazy. But I think we all know where she was going with it. They end up doing a world tour together, and we can touch on the world tour maybe after we get through the songs. I was blessed enough to be able to go see it, but it was an interesting way how they structured that tour as well, and I think it solidifies this album as a whole. So we'll touch on that at the end. So after Luther, it then goes into Man of the Garden, which there's a few introspective songs on here, and this is one of the top.
Yeah, absolutely one of the most introspective songs on the entire album. I agree with you there. But what I found interesting about it, I think I don't want to say this is a common theme in hip hop, but I think there are a lot of artists who do kind of make something that has a similar connotation to it. Like, I got big, I blew up, and being the biggest, being the best can be isolating and can not necessarily feel the greatest. What I found interesting listening to Man at the Garden is that I think Kendrick is saying something similar, that, I'm isolated at the top. I don't have a lot of people around me. But I don't think he's down bad about it. I don't think he's down on himself about it. I think it's just an acknowledgement of something that comes with the territory of being on a level of your own. I don't think it was, like I said, something that he was trying to be sad about. I don't think there's really a lot of sadness anywhere on this project. So that was kind of how I interpreted this one.
I think you see Kendrick struggling with understanding the beef and coming after somebody on this song, where he's like, I in a sense almost ruined somebody's career. That's a lot to handle. It's a lot to handle of trying to brag and be like, I am the greatest. Like, can I really say that? And it's him rationalizing with himself of like, I can do that. Like, this is why I deserve it. This is what it is. And it's said in a funny way. The garden represents like the Garden of Eden and just like kind of that peace and prosperity. And so I think that's an interesting thing where he's obviously trying to find peace. So it's kind of like, did winning this really give me what I wanted? Because like I started it, and so I think that's kind of what you're seeing with this too. But from a sonic perspective, taking the lyrics aside, the way that the hymns start coming in near the end, this song's just gorgeous, like through and through. Probably the best hummed song since Kid Cudi decided to start humming on songs. You know what I mean? And it's pretty wild, and like the way it builds. I think that's a theme through this. We see a lot of these songs build really well, and it does tremendously, but it also slows down the vibe of what's going on, and kind of just it melds well with Luther, I think. And then it's funny because it goes slow and then it goes into probably one of the toughest songs on the whole album, which is Hey Now.
Oh yeah, no.
And DJ
Hey
Mustard coming back. Damn, baby.
Of course. Of course. Yeah, you kind of have, like you said, two kind of slower songs back to back with Luther and Man at the Garden, and then Hey Now is, hey, welcome back to the confidence. Welcome back to I am who I am. Welcome back to I'm the greatest. Welcome back to I don't need to explain my story to you. Like, you already know it. Even if there was, like you said, that introspection of post beef, like you said, not. I think it'll be hard to. I guess time will tell as with what actually happens with Drake coming out following all of that. Whatever else he's able to put out and how it's received by the world. Kendrick didn't even need to bother with waiting to make a statement again of, hey, now, I'm here.
But this is the LA track, because They Not Like Us, it obviously was more a reference between Drake's team and my team were different, but it also was a statement for LA. And you just saw that through and through with just the beat. DJ Mustard is a prominent LA producer, but he made a lot of like LA street music, like kind of gangster rap in the 2010s, later 2010s. And so this is kind of like a revitalization for him. He produced the They Not Like Us beat, which is just an incredible beat. You don't even need to listen to that song with lyrics and you'll find that song awesome. I don't know. Kendrick couldn't have ruined it, put it that way. And he did it amazing with it as well. But this is like, wow, you did it with Mustard. What comes next? And this is the first Mustard beat that we get on this project, which is Hey Now. I saw an interview with Mustard and he was talking about how when Clips, which is Pusha T and them, and Pharrell made a lot of their beats back in the day. So this is older. They're from Virginia. They made a song called Grinding. And Mustard was saying how he thought the Hey Now beat was like the LA version of Grinding, which you can go listen to it. I get it. I don't know fully. It's an interesting tad note to hear that it's from Mustard himself saying that. But I think the funniest part of this was Mustard sent Kendrick beat packs. So meaning he sent him a few beats to work with. And he was most stoked about this beat for Hey Now, Say Now. And Kendrick was most stoked about They Not Like Us, obviously, and was trying to tell him that, like, no, it's over when we use that song. And so I just find it interesting that obviously the lyricist, the artist, is the one who makes the song, and that's why their name's on the project. But making a beat takes a lot. And so hearing Mustard say that this is his favorite, I think is a cool statement. This is when we get one of the first LA rappers on there, Dodie Six. Don't even really know him at all, but comes in. Hey Now, I think is more like, hey now LA, what's up? We're here. No one's fucking with us type vibe. So, that's that with that song. Great beat, funny. But then we get right into the most introspective song, which is Reincarnated at track 6.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mentioned earlier, I think Luther is the warmest song on this whole album. Reincarnated is unequivocally the heaviest song on this album.
Yes.
There's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of, like we said, introspection. It's Kendrick wrestling with this ego, wrestling with this confidence that he's feeling about himself. At least this is how I'm interpreting it, how I'm understanding it, is like I think everybody, maybe, at least I think a lot of people who do make it to the top have at least a moment of, am I worthy? Do I deserve it? And I feel like that's some of what you're seeing in this song here. Is, you'll probably do a better job of articulating it than what I can, but
well, I guess in a sense, like, how did it make you feel? Right. I think that's more what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it just, I don't have a good word for it. I know it's powerful. I can't put a single adjective on how I felt. I don't know if there's, I'm sure you have more context that you can throw in here.
This song is, we've seen this from Kendrick a lot in the past, where he creates different characters in a sense, or tells a story from different perspectives. So he's playing like 3 different people in this song. But I think the overall theme for what it is the last verse, where he uses different voice inflections to be himself and then be God. And he's almost like talking to God, is like, what am I doing? Like, did I find happiness? I think this is the track 6 is the culmination, not entirely, but the culmination for Kendrick as a person on the beef of being like, did I do this? And the theme of reincarnated being like, I did this story. I'm bringing myself back, and I'm bringing myself back to this positive light that I've always been trying to do, which throughout all of his other albums, it's always been like, if you're in a dark place, there is a positive light, and I'm trying to uplift the community more than anything. And he obviously went into a part where he might not be uplifting the community at all, and that's where this is. And it's like, can I do that? Right. And the last line of the song, I have it pulled up. I rewrote the devil's story just to take our power back, and then just screams reincarnated. Right. So it's like, it's that fight for what that was and how this is feeling. Interesting part about this too is Kendrick has always referenced Tupac in the past, but this is the song that I was talking about. That was the interpolated beat. This was just a beat from a Tupac song. So he pretty much just rapped over the same beat. Obviously Tupac was shot and is no longer with us. And I think like that plays into the theme of reincarnation too, which I think is funny. Or not funny, but I think interesting with how he flips that.
Yeah.
And that's where I say, like, I don't love when artists do, like, they just take the beat and rap over it for themselves. This one I do enjoy just because of that and the theme of what he's trying to say and do, and that he is paying homage to the past and showcasing where we're going to go in the future. And that's that. So this is the one that, you sit down and listen to, and classic Kendrick fans who love the lyricism, this is going to be your favorite song on the album. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. But it's crazy.
No,
it goes deep, and it's the deepest, and then it goes in to probably, well, the song's deep, but on the surface, it's definitely not the deepest, and that's TV Off.
Yeah. definitely surface level. And I think it kind of goes back to the whole TikTok phenomenon of how this song gets perceived is at that surface level, because it just doesn't, the clip of it that you hear most often doesn't give you the full story,
right,
of trying to, I don't know, I think it's ironic, right? It's called TV off, and it's like steer clear of the media, steer clear of the stories that are being told. But the ironic part of it is that the song absolutely goes crazy online, and like it's, everybody knows that everybody has seen it, and it's almost like the song did unintentionally what he was telling people not to do.
correct. I'll give you that. I think it's funny that there's a beat switch in the song and both beats blew up on TikTok. So like both portions of the song are used everywhere. The song starts off with the line, "All I ever wanted was a black Grand National, fuck being rational, give them what they ask for." And like, give them what they ask for. This is the commercial appeal. This is it. So y'all wanted it. Y'all didn't think I could do this anymore with Mr. Morale. Here it is. Right? Here it is. And this is the song that we're going to play at the Super Bowl, and that's what's up. Obviously, the beat switches, and then it becomes mustard, the thing that everybody knows, where he's screaming, he's bringing the energy. It's this. But then the final line there is walking into New Orleans with the etiquette of LA screaming, and then he does the mustard thing again. And I think that showcases where he's like, I'm thinking about the Super Bowl. It's showtime. This is what y'all wanted. It's coming. So this was like the precursor to what we're going to see. And then when we actually, and this is down the line, but when we actually got the Super Bowl performance, and it's awesome that we're talking about this post that this is the final song he does. And the song's called TV Off, and it goes right into the commercial break. So he had this whole thing planned from literally step one of knowing that like this is going to shut your TV off, and like the beef's over, because he does the beef songs. He touches in Not Like Us, the big songs in the Super Bowl performance. There was in the song that Drake didn't diss him but called him out in. He is saying that we're as big as the Super Bowl. Drake doesn't have a Super Bowl. Kendrick does. TV's off. We're done with this. So I think that was the final statement, that it's over. This song doesn't even necessarily like reference the beef directly. He just makes a banger and was like, I can do this. What's up? And makes a, an ad lib that works. I don't know. A lot of people don't necessarily have that like Kendrick ad lib that they go back to. Now they do. And yeah, I mean, it's just a fun song through and through. This will wake you
Definitely.
up. Put it that way.
Yeah. It's very interesting hearing you be able to tell the full story there of how it ties into the Super Bowl performance. You and I watched this past Super Bowl together, and we were talking about how like, when is the most, there it is, go Hawks, but like, when is the most valuable time to be a part of that broadcast? And it's right leading up to halftime, because as soon as halftime is over, that performance is over, a lot of people literally TV off, go to bed. And so
Crazy.
It was very, very well executed on Kendrick's part. And then that takes us, continuing on with the album, that takes us into Dodger Blue, which obviously LA Dodgers, one of the biggest teams in Major League Baseball, something that Nick and I, baseball fans, if you heard us talk about the good old Mets in season 1 of the Interlude Pod, obviously blue, additional symbolism there, and other stuff that kind of comes to fruition, stuff that you can see during the Super Bowl halftime performance. I think the song was meant to be kind of for LA, obviously referencing the hometown team. But I also think, from at least my understanding, this was probably not the best received song out of the whole project.
I would probably say that. I think it's obviously more LA driven. I think this is the beginning of the second half, to me, of the album. And this is now moving past just me realizing like what this beef was and what's going on in my life. This is for now everybody else, and I want to get some things off my chest and showcase for the people I need to showcase. So this was just an LA song. It's more of a viber song, and I think that's really all it needs to be. But check this out right now, folks. I'm throwing up my vinyl. This is my GNX vinyl. Of course, I went and had to get that indie exclusive Dodger Blue vinyl. So that's why I'm stoked about this and had to bring it up, because it is in the reference to the song. But I think honestly in the back half here, you'll see a bunch of these songs that it's not as deep as it needs to be, and you enjoy it. And that's all it is. And so Dodger Blue, then it goes into Peekaboo. But Todd, I got a question for you before we get into this. What are they talking about?
They talk about nothing.
Nah, they ain't talking about nothing. Huh? That's all I'm saying. Okay. What's your favorite pasta, man? Because me, I'm doing cacio e pepe when I'm doing pasta.
It's got to be the cacio e pepe, dude. It has to be the cacio e pepe. Ideally table side, you got to get it done table side. That's when
that's true.
Really get
a little table side. Yeah, has Kendrick ever had the table side cacio e pepe? He wants to talk to the Italians right quick. Let me wake him up one time. Come on, Kenny.
We can give him the tour. We can give him the tour if he wants to come out east.
Yeah,
like you said, I think kind of manifesting itself in what we were just kind of doing there. It's just fun. He's at this point. It's amusement. This is just a fun song. I think there's a little bit of like. I think this one also kind of slightly calls back to the beef a little bit, like alludes to it. Obviously not anything too explicit, but like anyone wants to try me, you want to try to be part of my competition. Like to Kendrick, that's just funny because there is no competition anymore.
Yeah, this reminded me, and I think this does go back to the beef. Is this the part of the song that blew up on TikTok is when he goes bing bak boom bak bam. He like just says that, and he's like, the type of shit I'm on you wouldn't understand, and it's just kind of funny because it's like, what? But if you remember that song that Kanye West dropped years back, where he was like poopity scoop, whoopity loop, it's called Lift Me Up. I don't know if you remember that. He just goes on this beat and ruins it, and like it got plays because everyone was like, what the hell is he doing? I saw an interview the other day where Kanye and Drake have had beefs through the years, and he gave the beat to Drake, and Drake worked like tirelessly on it, made a song, like all of this to that beat, gave it to Kanye, and Kanye said, this is awesome, and then released that, just completely ruining it. And so it was just like the pettiest thing you could ever do. And like Drake was like, what the hell? And it was ridiculous. Like, come on. But I think that's what like this is, that tie back where he's just like ding bak boom bak bam. Like he's just doing the same thing that like Kanye did, and I can still do it. And the type of shit you just won't understand. Like, and it's just ridiculous. Like but it's hilarious. And some of the funniest parts are obviously in this song, but I think that's all it is. And it's funny that it goes from that into probably, no pun intended, the most heartfelt song, which is Heart Part 6. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts just
the song
as a whole on this song, because I know like the story, obviously, but I'm curious just to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, so I think I wish that I would have known the story more. Coming into it, it was... Like I said, I ended up listening through this whole album a few times, and I guess that was for a variety of reasons. One I alluded to earlier, of like the songs that the little hooks and whatever that you recognize from blowing up on social media were distractions to me. But then I also felt like there were some songs, maybe partly due to that I just never like really felt like I was able to sink my teeth into, I guess. And for whatever reason, this was one of them. Maybe also partly that it's towards the end of the album is part of it. Like, it feels like it's kind of a little bit of like an autobiography, but I don't have all of the context, all of the background to be able to understand it in its fullest.
Todd, that's okay. because hopefully I can. And so we could do a whole episode just on this song and the story of TDE, but that is what this song is. There's plenty of even books and things written about TDE, which is Top Dog Entertainment, and how the record label came up. Obviously, Kendrick's the biggest one of the bunch. But they're in TDE in the beginning. There was a group of 4 of them, Kendrick being one. It was a rapper known as J-Rock, who was the biggest at the time. And then a guy named Ab Soul, who was like this a lyric god, pretty much. He flips words like no one ever can. And then a rapper named Schoolboy Q, who commercially probably a lot of people know. He's like the gangster rapper kind of from the crew. The 4 of them were a group called Black Hippie, and Black Hippie was destined to kind of release an album together, and it probably could have been the best like combo album of all time. It definitely was sparked to be that, and I bet there are songs, like I bet they do have albums in the vault that just has not come out. Kendrick is no longer part of TDE. He's left and started his own label, PG Lang. And this is a song telling the story of the come up, all of that. I'm not going to get into depth fully about that because, again, like I said, if we want to tell that story, that's a whole different podcast in its own. But that's what this song is. It's very much a storytell song of who it was. He name drops all 4 of the members of Black Hippie. All that references a lot of the guys who were part of Top Dog Entertainment from the beginning, and talks about kind of the come up. But then the moral behind it is, he's talking about how he feels he kind of ruined Black Hippie and what they could have been. And so take this lesson from me and have a heart to heart is the message of it. The other side of this, which has nothing to do with this song specifically, but is the throw in, is Kendrick, before every album he releases, has released a song called The Heart. And so before Mr. Morale, we had The Heart Part 5. Before Damn, The Heart Part 4, you name it, right? So this is The Heart Part 6, and it's on the album, which is weird. Now, also tie in, Drake named one of his beef songs The Heart Part 6. So it's kind of like Kendrick's like, no, you're not the heart, I am.
Yeah.
So he uses that name and puts that in. What I find interesting here is because The Heart Part 6 was on this project, and because it's not as deep, whatever you want to name it, a lot of people thought this was a mixtape, that this wasn't the album, that the album's coming. And there's alludes to that this isn't the full project. I can confidently say now that we're in 2026 and we haven't gotten that yet, so I don't know. Yeah. My envisionment is the album that you want to call it was the Super Bowl performance and the world tour. Like this was the lead up towards that, because the story of this whole thing is not finished until that's done, because that's when the beef is settled. Like, I'm done performing Not Like Us for what that is with the fire I have. So that's how I envision it, looking back on it in that term. So it's interesting that he named that song this, and yeah, that's what that one's about. So that's definitely a more lyrical focus, but he's talking about the story, and it doesn't have much to do with the beef at all, but kind of just furthering the push of where we are, and I need to address this.
Sure.
So that's that, and then it goes into the title track, which is GNX, where he pretty much just has all of the local LA guys hop on a song, and this one I don't know, bro. This is the one song I don't know.
There was kind of a motif, if you will, that I kind of picked out of this song. Like you said, it is the title track. As you mentioned earlier, the Grand National coming out the same year Kendrick was born. And I think the way that the GNX is perceived is that it's a very precision built car, but obviously now, being from the 80s, it's a classic. I think they're hard to come by. They're pretty rare. And I think the motif is that, like, Kendrick is the car. He's precision. He's rare. He's a classic. That he offers that same kind of, like, versatility that the vehicle does.
I didn't even put that one together, so I respect that. That's sick. And I think you're totally right, because there's a lot of these guys on this song who are very up and coming, and they're working with the vet in a sense, you know. So you're getting put on. There's not many like this vet that can put you on like this, and so yeah, that motif works. I would say this is definitely the least played track on the album, and so I think commercially people don't love it as much, but
and that's probably due to the features of, I don't want to say no names because that would be disrespectful to them, but smaller artists who do take up a large chunk of the song naturally because there's multiple of them, and for all of them to have a chance to get their words in, that just takes up time. And so when you listen to this, you're not listening to a lot of Kendrick, but rather,
and
the
maybe this is braggadocio in a sense too, but Kendrick, like you mentioned, so the GNX, there's only 547 models of them. He owns one of them, and this is can almost be an allusion to that. Like, it's rare to get this. It's rare to get this feature opportunity in this way. I'm not even going to speak on this. I'll do my little hook, but y'all take this over and let's see where this goes. Which, that's interesting. It's a good point. But then that gets into the final song, Gloria. Gloria SZA's back. Yep.
Once again, getting SZA back on the track. Like I said, I just think anytime that they collaborate, it sounds wonderful. I think the two of them do a really good job together. And the way that I interpreted Gloria is that it's also a more emotional song, a love letter in a way, but it wasn't necessarily a love letter like to his wife or to a woman, but rather to the artistry of making music, and to his devotion to his faith. That was the way that I heard the song. I felt the song. I think this was another one of those songs that you can get a good feel for in your chest, even if you don't necessarily always have the best words to describe it.
I think you nailed it. I have nothing more to add on that. And I think now that we've gotten to the end, it's time to talk about kind of the tour and everything that comes with this. So him and SZA then go on a world tour. The way it was broken out is it's definitely like Kendrick's the main guy on the tour. SZA can hold her own world tour, don't get me wrong, but it was kind of structured as that. It was a long performance, like 2+ hours. And so Kendrick would go, then SZA would come in and do her songs. Kendrick would come back in, and they were kind of going at it alone, doing their own thing, like going back and forth in a sense. They would probably do 4 or 5 songs together. And then everyone knows the 3 songs they have together and are pretty stoked for it. She came in when Kendrick was doing his set in a sense to do All of the Stars, and then also sang the hook on Love, which is featuring Zakari, a different TDE member, but obviously SZA's voice carries, so she hooks that up.
Yeah.
And then Luther and Gloria are more or less, and then Not Like Us were like the encore songs. So it kind of ends. Then they both come in kind of together. He does Not Like Us to kind of close it. The lights went out, and then the Luther sample came in, and like that was just like holy shit. And they both came out, did it. But I find it interesting because the last song they do is Gloria. You would think the big song is Luther, but like you can totally tell that Kendrick loves, like obviously he loves Luther, but like that Gloria is like, this is it. Like this is what I want heard. This is the story. Like this is the artistship thing, and that's how I can rationalize what everything happened was through artistry. I think that's fascinating, and it was sick. The world tour was unbelievable. We saw him in Amsterdam, which was like even sicker. But
it really adds to it.
It did. I won't lie. It did add to it. It was really cool. But I don't know. It to me, like Kendrick is the greatest rapper of all time, and this more or less just cemented it even more. And just everything that went into it, just everything's so well calculated. And it's like, damn, like how, I don't know. It's things that you wouldn't even think about that he is thinking about that do it. Like I remember when the Super Bowl performance ended and it was TV off, and then it went to commercial break, and then that hit me, like, why the song's named TV off. And I was like, oh my God, like we were waiting on this for like months. Like, it's like, what the hell? Like, it's, I don't know. It's crazy how he did it in all of that. But that's that. I think it's time for us to
I think
get into some ranks.
Yeah, I do think it is time for scores. I was just gonna kind of close up on something that I just found interesting. Literally just now, 30 seconds ago, observing the way you talking about it almost feels like you're kind of re-feeling those things. And obviously, having the chance to be there in person for the world tour, there's definitely a visceral feeling that sticks with you. And when you think about it, when you talk about it, you get to re-experience those things. So I just thought that was kind of cool, getting to kind of see that through you, albeit through a screen. And it is, just a good way to close out the conversation on, Kendrick cementing himself as the greatest rapper, probably of all time.
It was just, for me, it was so sick because it was like, well, obviously Kendrick's one of my favorite artists of all time too. So, you throw that in there, but just being a huge rap fan and like nerding out in that way, like this was a peak rap moment of like all time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like just being able to see that, like obviously the Biggie Tupac beef has always been talked about, and like that's always a thing. And I think 20 years down the line, like we are going to talk about Drake versus Kendrick and like the aftermath of everything that happened from this. And this is like what we're getting. It was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm like witnessing
it's
this,
cool
like I'm going to be able to tell this story in 20 years. And I just find that really cool. So
exactly. It's cool to be able to witness and experience the history in real time. And so, and so with that takes us to our final little segment of the show. Well, I guess we got one other segment that you and I actually normally we talk about beforehand, and we did not talk about before this episode. So maybe you're just ready to spring a little surprise on me. But that will obviously be that'll be the very last thing we talk about before we get there. We got to talk about our scores. And so to give all of our fans a little bit of a recap, I'll run through here. What we have decided to do here on the NTRLD Spins podcast is every record that we review, we have kind of 5 categories that we like to give a score for. And those categories in order are concept and structure, sound and production, writing and lyrics, vocal delivery, and replay value. And so those 5 categories, we like to give these albums a score on a scale of 1 to 10. And then we provide one kind of last overall score. Give it a letter grade, something that's unrelated directly to the scores that we lay out here. But just kind of an overall feel. I think sometimes not every album can be tied to just, it's not dominated by one category. Sometimes the whole is greater than the sum of its parts type of thing. But with this album, for me, I mean, we can either run, you tell me, you want to run category by category, or do we just kind of jump to
I mean, we've talked about this album obviously very in depth, so I think we can maybe just do a quick description of what we do for each thing. But I think we're going to see some high scores coming in if I had to guess.
Yeah, I think so.
So the first category, concept and structure. We've talked about that in detail. You know what I mean? So me personally, I'm going 10. I don't know how you get better. I think every Kendrick project from me is a 10 in terms of concept and structure, but you did it.
Yeah, he did do it. I originally had a 9 just because giving out 10 almost felt weird, wrong on a scale of 1 to 10, something that we haven't typically done. But you're absolutely right that this just is a 10. Like it's as good as it gets.
You did it. Sound and production. This one gets more interesting. I think it's awesome. I think it's gorgeous and beautiful. The one thing I think you could take back maybe is that it is a shorter project, so it's easier to kind of make those like banger sounds or whatever that is in that shorter period of time.
Interesting.
I don't know. I'm still not going to drop my score. I think I go 9 on this. I really like it. One thing I do want to throw in here in terms of sound and production is one of the executive producers is Jack Antoff. If you guys watch the no, I was about to say Emmys, the Grammy Awards speech, there's one random white guy up there, and that's Jack Antoff, and he very much is a heavy producer for Taylor Swift. So interesting throw in there. He's done a lot of other stuff too, but definitely not like a rap focused guy. And so it's funny to see him in there, and he obviously did an amazing job with this. So shout out Jack Antoff.
Very, very interesting. I certainly did not know that. That's a fun tidbit. It was also interesting that you kind of brought up the fact that it's a shorter project. To me, it almost sounded like you were going to use that as a knock on this project. And obviously it's hard to knock this project really in any way, shape, or form. But I see what you're saying, that it's kind of easier to put 45 minutes of good music together than it is to put an hour and a half of good music together. Either way, like I have this as a 9 as well. I think the sound throughout is fantastic. The beats are great. The way that everything flows from one song to the next. I don't feel like there's anything that gets lost. I don't think there's anything that kind of like trips you up as a listener, confuses you in any way. I think it's very well done.
And I think it's interesting with that, and maybe it did come across as a knock, but I just think it needs to be mentioned when it's a shorter project, because there's two folds to it. One, I almost think it could be easier to release a longer project because you record a lot of songs and you're like, I don't know what to take off. So making it shorter is like you really had to concise this and decide what it is, and that's why I give concept and structure a higher score, because it's like, no, we had to paint this down. Where you see some albums where it's just this long thing because it was like, they're all great songs, and like, yeah, you're right, but like now it takes away from the album as a whole. But in theory, if you make 2-minute long songs, it's easier to do. Kendrick's not doing that. 9's a high score. I'm sticking confidently with it. Going into writing and lyrics, damn, this is where you could say that this isn't as deep as some of his projects, and so if you're comparing it to him, you don't go the top score, and so it's almost hard to go 10 because of that. But like for what he's trying to do, he nails it. So I don't know. I'm struggling if I go 10 or 9 here. What do you have?
I got it at a 9, and I think again that was just me not really being in this as much and knowing necessarily, I guess, I don't know if I ever would have given a 10, at least until I felt more confident in kind of how our scoring system goes. This probably is damn near as good as it can get for a 9. It doesn't round up, so I guess I'm at a 9.4. We're not doing decimal places here, but it doesn't have to be the usual Kendrick thought-provoking type of lyrics for it to be great lyricism. I think he does that here.
Yeah, I'll go with 9 too. I think, if you're talking about just strictly writing and stuff like that, this is awesome, but I do have to compare it to Kendrick in some way or shape, just personally. So I'm going to do that. Mm-hmm. But the next category, which is also kind of tied to lyrics, which is vocal delivery, just straight rapping, you don't get better. I don't see how you will get better. So this is a 10 for me. I don't.
Yeah. It doesn't get better. I'm with you. I love this. There's something that I noticed on the Joey Badass album. I love artists who do kind of have these different like personas and the way that they can manipulate their voice in order to tell the story. And obviously Kendrick does that on this project. And a shout out goes to the features as well. This is a Kendrick project. He's the one who won the Grammy for rap album. Everybody, I think, does a good job, whether they're some of the smaller LA artists that you don't really know, all the way up to SZA, who just has an absolutely beautiful voice herself.
Yeah.
I think 10 is the right answer here.
And folks, we should state a claim here is we're not just analyzing Kendrick for the album as a whole. This is the album as a whole. So we're taking all the artists, and SZA obviously adds very well to that. Replay value. This is a score, Todd, that I don't know if I'll ever really give out a 10 for, because I think that's I just don't see myself necessarily doing that. And why? Maybe I got to figure out a reason why. But I think it's like that's tough to like when I look at a 10, it's like you will just always listen to this project 24/7, and I'm just someone who doesn't necessarily do that.
Yep.
But this is such an easy album, and we've talked about it, to come back to, whether it's a song, whether it's the project, just because it's shorter, this and that, and the replay value. You'll tend to feel good after listening to this album. So I'm going another high score out of 9.
Yeah, I mean, I already said I listened to this album top to bottom 3 times from when we announced that this would be our next album to now recording this episode here. So obviously being able to do that and not get sick of it has, it weighs into the score. The fact that there are little clips, little snippets that have ended up blowing up on TikTok, and you hear them over and over again and you're still not sick of them, that might slightly be I don't want to say like infiltrating, but influencing the score a little bit, in a way that like you just simply do hear some of these things over and over and over again. They are on replay a lot, but you don't get sick of it. So I also have it at a 9 here. So I think we're pretty much in lockstep here when it comes to the scoring. All 9s and 10s across the board. Fantastic project. The last thing that brings us, the last thing that brings us to then is the overall, the letter grade, and I think there's, we're at the start of the alphabet here.
Yeah, no, I don't. I think everyone knows it's coming from me, so that I get it. It's good to hear. That's the first full A that we've gotten. So, and I know we could go to some classics, but hopefully we can put together on this podcast some albums people might not have heard about as much that will hit some of these higher tiers. So that's good. But we had to do this one. This is just such a fun one, and I love doing it. I keep staring at the vinyl. I'm giddy already. It's a good time, but that's what's up. I think what Todd was alluding to with the little surprise, if we're gonna have the album for next time picked, I'm gonna tell y'all folks right now, we're at an hour 20. I don't have it yet. So I think you will see on the reveal video. We'll figure it out. We'll come together and figure out a little vibe that we can get there. But hey, I'll say this to all the loyal listeners, and look at this visually. We got the L and L. If you put 2 L's together, I know it's inverted, but it makes a W, and that's what we're doing out here with the loyal listeners. But if you have any recommendations maybe for the next one, or just a type of vibe, I'm not even saying that you have to pick our album, but if there's a vibe that people are looking for, and that goes even to you, T, let me know. And I'm going to go into the vault here and put together a little something for us for our next episode. But this was
all good.
Awesome for me. I love this album.
Oh yeah, no, ton of fun. We typically keep our episodes a little bit shorter than this. We usually try to stay around the hour ballpark. With this one, I feel like it had every right to run a little bit longer. This was definitely a blast. And folks, this is something that we talked about a little bit, where Nicky Nicknames, having the collection of donuts, as we like to say, that he's got there, might be curating our listening experience a little bit. But if you've got any recommendations, let us know. I will say, I know we have a comment somewhere. I don't remember if it was Instagram or TikTok. We've got a comment somewhere of someone asking us for a particular project, so we can always pull that up and see.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
We do.
I didn't hear about that one.
I'll dig back and I'll find it, and we'll let people know. Coming up shortly. It almost feels like a disservice after talking about Kendrick in this way, but
I know where this is going.
But I think we gotta start to get ready to, conclude another episode of the Interlude Pod. That's Nicky D, and I'm your co-host, Todd. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you've enjoyed listening to this episode half as much as we've enjoyed making it for you.
Because we had a ball, and only real ideas are gonna last, and all the other bullshit is here today and gone tomorrow.
So without further ado, we will see you next time. I guess good afternoon, New York.
Well, I will say this. I think we have to say this without closing it, because it's weird doing the Drake close. But T, what do they talk about?
They talk about nothing.
Good night, New Jersey.